Hello, bienvenido, welcome to Sucio Talk, episode 14. Here we go. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Today is a very special episode for me. This is a chef that basically taught me how to cook and was able to give me the ability to go work at the top restaurants in the country, the top restaurant in the country at the time. So, you know, we talk a little bit about how I showed up there, but basically it's the same as the restaurant on Meadowwood. Back door. All right? Love the back door. Love going through the back door. So, Chef Jake Rojas, who currently owns Tallulah's Taqueria in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a taco restaurant, Mexican restaurant. He is Mexican descent and grew up in El Paso. He went to the Culinary Art Institute of Dallas. And then early on in his career, he worked at some great restaurants in Vegas. It was Joel Robuchon at the Mansion. That's at the MGM Grand. Then we got, he was a chef de partie at Alan Ducas's Mix. And he was also at the Four Seasons Resort in West Palm Beach. So he owns, like I said, Tallulah's Taqueria. He also has Tallulah's Tacos at the Shack in Jamestown, Rhode Island. Which, if you heard my episode, that is the first island that I worked on in Rhode Island at Trattoria Simpatico. So, you know, Chef Jake was kind of a local legend at that time. And, you know, I heard about him through the grapevine, and it wasn't until one of my buddies was like, hey, you should go check out this guy. He's serious. He comes from, you know, serious kitchens. If you want to get better, you should probably go work with him. And it's probably the best decision I ever made. You know. So before we get into that, I got some shout-outs, all right? My man, Evan Katz. Shout out to him. He's a firefighter out in said Jamestown, Rhode Island. He worked at Tallulah on Thames with me as a food runner very early on. And it's kind of crazy to hear from him because it's been so long. And, you know, it's one of those people, you don't want to forget him, but, you know, it's been so long you don't really talk to him much. But I'm going to read his message off right here. He sent me a DM on Instagram. It says, yo, Brother Dave, I hope all is well, man. Not sure if you remember me or not, but I waited tables at Trap for a few years. That's Trattoria Simpatico. When you and Charlie were starting out. Anyway, I've been listening to the pod, and when I can, hearing the episodes with you and Charlie brought back some memories. If you ever have him on again, I'd love to join in and share a couple stories. To this day, I can still remember a couple of Charlie's specials, which I have tried my best to recreate on my own. I also have a story about something you said to me once that changed my perception of working and finding your passion in life. So there you go. You know, I'm 20 years old at the time when I'm working at this restaurant, and I was able to inspire someone. You know, I didn't even know it at the time. This is the first time I've ever heard of him saying this to me. I'm curious to know what it is, so I'll be hitting him up to figure that out. And as far as Charlie Apple goes, he'll definitely be on the show again. There's no way that I'm not going to have him on. It's going to be more of a food talk formula next time because we all know about his life. We heard it on the second episode. So we're going to talk about food, talk about ferments. He's gonna kind of talk about some things that he's working on, and it'll be more of a food talk oriented podcast. All right. Then next we have Brittany Cassidy. Brittany Cassidy was on the show already. She was the former CDC of Birdie G's. She's also right now just started doing being the chef at Violet LA, which is basically like from what I see online, it's a culinary school plus a restaurant. So good for her, man. She's such a good fucking teacher that I can't wait to see what kind of talent she pumps out of there, you know. And I'm sure the food is great. So whenever I'm in LA, I will check that out. All right. I'll be doing an LA tour in a couple weekends from now. I got a couple chefs over there that are going to be on the podcast, and I'm going to be up in San Francisco as well, getting some other people on. So this podcast is picking up slowly but surely. Next person that I'd like to shout out is Rebecca Frazier. So Rebecca Frazier works for the Caviar Company, and she had reached out to me and basically left me this message on my DMs about how much she loved the show and how much she talks about it at work. So, you know, I appreciated that because she took time out of her day to send me a message about how much she liked the podcast, you know, which is always cool to hear from people. So here's her message. Hi, Chef. I've been meaning to send you a message for probably 3 months. LOL, but I just wanted to say that your podcast is fucking awesome. I've worked with chefs for 3 years now, and I rarely get the chance to talk about something other than caviar with them. Not totally complaining, though. I didn't have any experience in the industry and had no idea how cool chefs were until I started this job. But your podcast just emphasizes everything I've said about chefs for the last 3 years. Listen up, chefs. You're seriously the coolest group of people ever. You're hardworking, thoughtful, creative, weird, and total badasses. And now that I have an outlet to hear all the crazy stories and learn how someone becomes such a badass, I feel like all my ideas of chefs are just further emphasized. I've listened to every episode since Tyler's was released, and I think I bring up something new that was mentioned on Sucio Talk to my coworkers each week. Even though we are in the same industry, there is just so much that goes on in restaurants and with chefs that no one knows about unless you are personally in it. With all of the other bullshit that chefs have gone through, there is clearly so much info that non-industry people need to know about, so we can work together to make the industry stronger than it's ever been. Chefs and their teams deserve so much more credit. You heard that? Chefs and their teams deserve so much more credit and money than they currently get. So thank you for starting the podcast. Thank you, Rebecca Frazier, for reaching out. Once again, that's of the Caviar Company. That's a San Francisco-based company that sells caviar and other luxury products. And from what I see, it's run by all women. So on National Women's Day, which should be every fucking day, I'm sorry, not just one goddamn day, thank you to all the hardworking women out there. And I appreciate people taking the time to write me, you know, and I will never leave a message go unanswered, you know. If you write in, you're definitely going to hear back from me, unless you're a fucking weirdo. Okay, there you go. There's that one. And another person I want to shout out is, her name is Emma Conroy. Emma Conroy. She's the GM at a restaurant called Truss. She's a Rhode Island native, and she writes in. She says she's the GM of Truss, native Rhode Islander, and she's been listening to the podcast, and she loves it. As a person that grew up in Rhode Island, sort of in the cooking scene there, it's a place that's undervalued. It's a place where chefs should migrate to, young chefs trying to make it and trying to change the game. Providence is a city that's very welcoming, and not to mention, all the farms are fucking 20 minutes away. The ocean's 30 minutes away. You know what I'm saying? So all your ingredients, everything's really, really close. So, trying to get good chefs over to Rhode Island to open new things is what needs to happen. There's two things. New chef comes into town, all the old chefs, what happens? They clench their buttholes a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They're like, what is this dude going to bring? It's at the end of the day, we're all in competition with each other. As much as restaurants should be a brotherhood, we are all in competition, right? Competition makes us better. So that's why we should have these restaurants opening up in these towns. In these towns that aren't kind of, everybody thinks, I need to move to LA, I need to move to New York. And I think we heard Derek Wagner and Ben Sukul those chefs talk about the fact that you don't need to be in these places to be considered successful and have a successful restaurant. All right? Now, a lot of people talk shit about Rhode Island. Oh, it's a small state. Oh, it's this and that. Go fuck yourself. All right? From Rhode Island to you. All right? And I had a crazy thing happen to me this past week. It's not that crazy. But anyway, it's an older gentleman giving me some advice. And one of the things he said to me, and I respect him for it because at the end of the day, he's not looking to hurt me by saying this. But he said, you know, trying to market yourself with the name Sucio is kind of counterintuitive to being a chef, right? Let's all be honest. Sucio means dirty, right? But I let him know this. In no way, shape, or form does the word Sucio frame the way I am and work in a kitchen. Now, don't get me wrong. I made some goddamn messes in my life. Spilled some water, spilled sauce, dropped shit, burned myself. You know, I went down during service a lot of times. This shit happens. And this name, Dirty Dave, right, was given to me by Chef John and Chef Kat. Those are the first ones. And probably, yeah, because I was a little bit rough around the edges, you know what I'm saying? But to me, Sucio is a state of mind, right? It's a hustle. It's constantly trying to think about things in a better form than you previously would have. It's knowing that there's infinite growth, right? So Sucio is a way of life. It's a way to be. You know, when you're in Puerto Rico and you're talking shit with your boys, the funniest ones usually like, tú eres un sucio. You know, you have this level of wit and intelligence that is unmatched, and you can use that in the world to navigate your success, the business of yourself. So Sucio equals dirty, but that is from a good place. It is not a bad thing. Now, historically, people have changed their names to have success, i.e. the band Lamb of God. Lamb of God is a death metal band who's pretty crazy story, you know, because they didn't even know how to play instruments before they formed the band, and now they're one of the biggest bands in the world, right? But their first name was Burn the Priest. As you can see, that's a little bit offensive, right? So they said, why don't we, to get mainstream media attention, we need to change our names. And a lot of people say, oh, they sold out, this and that. And I don't think they did. I think that they knew they needed to do that in order to move on in their careers. Now, at the end of the day, this shit was 20 years ago. The world was a different place, right? And the goal of myself, and I believe other successful people, is to do what you love and to get paid for it, right? To live comfortably doing your craft, whether that's music, art, cooking, carpenter, whatever the fuck it is. All right. Now, I don't do this podcast for the money. I do it for the fact that I get to interview cool ass people. I wouldn't even say interview. Have a conversation with cool ass people and probe their mind about what the hell was going through their head when they made certain decisions in their career. Right? So, am I trying to get paid to do the podcast? Fuck yes. Hell yeah. I'm trying to get some sponsors in here. Right? That way it opens the doors for me to go everywhere I want to go. Right? There's chefs in Denmark that I want to talk to. There's chefs in Japan I want to talk to. Kenneth Foon from Noma said, hey, let's do a podcast. I said, fuck yeah, I'll do a podcast. You got to understand, and this is a message to all the people that I will do podcasts with in the future. I do not give a shit what time of day it is. We will record the podcast whenever you want. If it's 2 in the morning, then I will be there at 2 in the morning to gather your thoughts.